Emily had been so confident in her family, job, and financial stability that she never expected what was going to happen. The pandemic had been a disaster for many people. Everything that could go wrong did. She lost her husband, her job, and nothing was the same. But there was one thing she had to do as usual: take care of her child. And she would do it. When she lost her job, she had saved enough money for a few months, but it wasn't enough to cover all of the bills and expenses for them. She pretended everything was fine, even as she struggled to make ends meet. But it was not. Emily learned that the state was going to provide her with financial aid by depositing money into her bank account. Overjoyed, she waited and waited. Nothing happened. So she went to the grocery store to get food for her child. That day, she met her guardian angel. Before the pandemic, Emily's life was like that of many others. Raised and loved by her parents, she moved to the West Coast after finishing her studies, where she met Don, a man 20 years older. Emily started working in baggage handling at LAX. Things were going well, including her love with Don, who one day asked her to marry him. Emily was happy to accept, and their marriage was happy for a few years. Ross and Jacqueline were born from their marriage. When their children were 2 and 4 years old, however, Don was struck by a serious illness that gradually weakened him. But nothing could discourage Emily's strength in facing a life that was becoming increasingly cruel to her. In fact, at the outbreak of the pandemic, airport traffic decreased and Emily lost her job. And the family's savings continued to decrease for the necessary medical expenses to fight Don's leukemia. When Don was taken away by the paramedics, the day he contracted the illness, that was the last time Emily and the children saw their beloved father and husband. 20 days later, the man died, away from the love of his family. The situation was not at all easy. The pain of loss and the extremely delicate economic situation brought the woman to the brink of despair. But she continued to pretend nothing was wrong with the children, aided by the lockdown that kept everyone at home for years. One day, the news came that the subsidy money would be directly deposited into Emily's bank account. This made Emily happy, and she began to dream of recovering her financial situation. But the money never arrived, and the savings she and her beloved husband had accumulated over so many years of work were completely gone. Emily remained determined to provide for her children, and she was sure she could find a way to regain financial stability. But she cannot sleep at night. But it was not easy, and during another sleepless night, the woman decided she would provide for her children at all costs. The only way was to steal. "I am not a thief," she repeated to herself during that sleepless night. There was no other way. The whole world was locked down. Nobody had work to offer her. So she decided to steal for the sake of her children. But she decided that one day, when she had the money, she would repay everything. So she decided to write a letter apologizing and marking the list of things she would steal, to be left on the shelves of the mall where she went to steal. Initially, no one at the supermarket noticed the thefts, but soon the matter came to light. So the manager decided to report the incident to the police and assign the supermarket security to keep a close watch. Jack Malone was a rather solitary man, and his job at the supermarket and his volunteer activities at the church were his only concern. He had no wife or children. The years when he had hoped to start a family were long gone, and now, at 50, he had lost all hope. One day, James, a security guard, came to his office saying he had identified the thief. They reached her while she was waiting to pay. She was a small, nervous African-American woman with a bag that was too big for her. She was holding the hands of 2 noisy and happy children. No, her eyes were not happy, and this troubled the manager. He invited her to follow him to his office and assigned someone to take care of the children. When they checked the contents of the woman's large bag in the office, they found $65 of merchandise ready to be stolen. The manager threatened the woman several times to call the police, but in his heart, he already knew he would never do it. He looked at the things the woman was stealing and was moved to think that they were just basic necessities. but he thought he would give the thief an important lesson in front of him. "We are in the United States, and theft is a very serious crime." The woman did not even shed a tear. She kept repeating with pride, "I am not a thief. I will repay everything when I have the money." The woman told him her story with great dignity. The man listened and could not know if that woman was a lying thief or a desperate woman. He let her go, as he had already decided long ago. But he was left with a great doubt in his heart. Had he done the right thing by letting her go? In the following weeks, Manager Malone was obsessed with the woman. And after talking to Reverend Johnson, he decided to go see her. When he found her, he immediately realized what he would never have the courage to admit. He was in love with the woman. "If you want me to withdraw the complaint, you have to do what I tell you," he said, even though he had already withdrawn the complaint long ago. And so Emily found herself volunteering at the church. Along with other volunteers, they delivered grocery packages to the needy throughout the county. At the end of the day, she was tired, but she had the right to the goods her children needed. For the woman, it was a matter of honor to repay Malone for the goods she said she had borrowed. And volunteering was a way to do it. That's how Emily and Malone started to see each other often, several times a day. The man was always very kind to her, but Emily knew the man could denounce her at any moment. So when the man asked her to go out to dinner, the woman didn't accept. But she knew that she would soon fall in love with him too. It wasn't an easy love to admit. They saw each other often. There was energy between them. For the first time in many years, Emily began to feel good again. The work with the volunteer organization continued to keep her busy. The children started going to school, and things seemed to be going well, even though the woman's financial situation was far from being resolved. The opportunity that sparked love between the two was a Salvation Army convention in Michigan, where they went to represent St. John's Parish. They found themselves one evening wandering aimlessly when they decided to have something to eat together. Something burst between the two, who had not seen anyone in years, and they found themselves spending the night chatting until the man confessed his love and kissed her. When they returned home, Emily met a colleague from LAX who gave her wonderful news that soon all workers who had lost their jobs during the lockdown would soon be reinstated. The first thing that sadly came to mind was that she could finally free herself from the cage of guilt she had put herself in to allow her children a dignified life. She didn't tell anyone until the day a letter arrived at the woman's house. It was Malone who picked it up, and when the woman opened it, the man was happy for her because she would finally have her job back. Malone didn't know that the woman had already decided to leave him. Not because he was a bad man, but because, like everything else, at that moment, the man reminded her of the sad conditions in which an honest woman was called a thief. Long, seemingly happy months passed. One day, the woman discovered she was expecting her third child. Everything collapsed around her. She decided it was not time to quit. That evening, when Jack returned home, the woman gave the family the news. A baby would soon be born. Jack, who for a long time had lost hope of becoming a father one day, burst into tears. His new family enveloped him in a loving embrace. They could be a happy family. So then Jacqueline asked an unexpected question. "Will you now withdraw Mom's complaint?" You know, kids' eyes wide shut. This wonderful story is an example of how kindness and generosity are still very much present in today's world. We are grateful for people who without hesitation offer their help to those in need. We asked our friends what they think of Jack Malone's action, and if they were in his same situation, what they would have done. Let's share our thoughts and leave a comment on the video. Let's remember to like it and subscribe to the channel to stay always informed about similar stories.